Alright, you're looking at my portfolio. I don't talk about it too much on the channel, but I always leave a link to it down below so you guys can click around, see my holdings, and you can use it to start your portfolio if you so choose. But this is the way I set up my investments. I have just one or two of my favorite ETFs, followed by a long tail of individual stocks. These are companies that I just want more direct ownership in. Companies like Home Depot, United Health Group, BlackRock, Lockheed Martin. I think these are some of the best companies in the world, and I want to have ownership of them. Now, some people like to go to the extreme and not hold any ETFs at all, and only individual stocks, and this gives them the most control over their money and investments. And then, of course, there's the other side of the equation. There's some people that only want to have a few ETFs and set it and forget it and never really think about it. And that's what I want to focus on in this video. I'm going to be making a mock portfolio of just a few dividend ETFs that I think work really well together to make a simple, easy to manage, but really effective portfolio. So let's come over here to the research tab on M1 Finance. And by the way, this is one of my favorite things about this brokerage. The fact that you can make unused portfolios just to kind of test out ideas. I do that all the time with my portfolio. So this is where I test out adding or removing different holdings to see how it affects my overall portfolio before I actually make the changes. So a super useful tool. So let's walk through the process of making this simple dividend portfolio of only a handful of ETFs. So the first ETF is definitely going to be SCHD. I just made a video about this ETF talking about why it's the best basic equity dividend ETF on the market. So this is definitely going to be part of this portfolio. Now, the next one that I think works very well with SCHD is JEPI. So this ETF has a super high dividend yield, 7.5%, and the total returns have been great. Over the past 12 months, up 26%. That's extremely respectable with such a high payout. And they achieve this via covered call strategy using ELNs, so it's very different than SCHD, but I think they work extremely well together. So we're definitely going to be adding this ETF. Now, another dividend ETF I love is DIVO. This also uses covered calls to generate a higher dividend yield, and I would classify DIVO as being somewhere between SCHD, a pure equity dividend ETF, and JEPI, which is really focusing on covered calls and providing a lot of income. And this is somewhere in between with a nice 4 to 5% dividend yield. So we're definitely going to be adding this. And the last holding might surprise you a little bit, but it's going to be VUG. This is a generic growth ETF. It's large cap companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook. And I'm adding this because I think it complements the dividend ETFs very well. So with those 4 ETFs, we're going to create the sample portfolio. And in terms of allocation, like I said, DIVO is kind of in between JEPI and SCHD, so I'm going to lower the exposure to just 20%. I'm not going to change it that much. And JEPI, I really believe in JEPI, so I'm going to take that allocation and put it here. And I'm going to leave SCHD and VUG at 25% each. So let's go ahead and save that. All right, so with those 4 ETFs, this is the performance of this mock portfolio. So over the past 12 months, it has a total return of 30%, which is awesome, with a dividend yield of 4%. That is really awesome. This is such a basic, easy to manage portfolio, and you're getting a 4% dividend yield, very high, and great total returns. In fact, if we want to, we can compare this versus just the S&P 500. So in that same time, it's had a total return of just 7% more, but the dividend yield is only 1.26%. So I think this mock portfolio we just made is epic. JEPI is just my favorite individual ETF on the market. If I could only buy one ETF, I think it would be JEPI. It drives so much cash flow and has competitive total returns. SCHD is just the best classic dividend ETF on the market. DIVO is somewhere in between. It has great dividend companies within it with some opportunistic covered calls on top of it. And then we have VUG just to give us more price appreciation. But let's go ahead and remove VUG just to see what it will look like with only dividend ETFs. So with VUG removed, I'm going to add some allocation to JEPI, some to SCHD. So I'm going to make these tie for now, both 35%. And then DIVO a little bit less at 30% allocation. Go ahead and save that. So now with just these 3 dividend ETFs, we have a combined dividend yield of 5% and a total return over the 12 months of 27%. So just 3% lower than before, which is awesome. So I would say unequivocally that both versions of this portfolio setup are amazing options. You're definitely not sacrificing any performance by having a simple setup. This is just a great way to go, especially if you don't want to have the complexity of managing all of this. I mean, we just have 3 holdings, a 5% dividend yield, and great total returns. So I'll leave this mock portfolio linked down below if you guys want to check it out. Now, if we come over to my Roth IRA, I actually have done a very similar strategy so we can kind of see how it's been performing. So I started this portfolio back in July of 2020, so a little bit over a year ago, and it's returned me that 30%. So that's real. This isn't just hypothetical. I've actually achieved these returns. And if we come into my portfolio, we can see how I have set this up. So it's a little bit different. Instead of having 3 dividend ETFs and 1 growth, I have 2 dividend and 2 growth. So JEPI and DIVO are the 2 that I've chosen to hold. I love the high dividend yields that these covered call ETFs offer. And then I combine it with the equity price appreciation found in VGT and ARKK, which are 2 of my favorite growth ETFs. VGT is way more broad. It's very similar to VUG that we had in the other portfolio. And then ARK is one that I personally am very bullish on. So this goes to show how effective a simple portfolio like this can be. If we go and filter by the past 1 year, it's gone up 33%. These are amazing returns. So I just wanted to make that video explaining different ways you can set up a portfolio and how one way isn't necessarily better than another way. A simple portfolio of 3 ETFs can have the same performance, if not better, than a complicated portfolio like this. Of course, each setup has its advantages, so like with my portfolio, I can precisely adjust how much exposure I want to various companies, which is something that I value. But a lot of people value simplicity and the set it and forget it mentality, and for those people, there's lots of great ways to achieve that, and I'll leave this portfolio we made together linked down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely leave it a like, it helps out the channel a lot. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.